We're not exactly sure what the announcement is going to be today, but Kris Kolluri has, of course, been trying to hammer home what commuters are going to need to do to be prepared in the event that the locomotive engineers do, in fact, begin their strike.
All right.
Let's
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to give an update to our riders about our ongoing negotiations with the BLET. I've said from the very beginning, I'm committed to the collective bargaining process and that I will never leave the negotiating table till we get to a deal. Going to a strike is not something I've ever wanted. I don't want it now, and I will never want it in the future. I met with a union yesterday, again, based on the premise that talking is good, not talking is bad. In the conversation that I had with them yesterday, what I was expecting was a proposal that will try to show that we are going to work towards a solution. But what I walked away from at the negotiating table was a bit of a head scratcher, I must admit. And you may ask, well, why is that? I want to just contextualize this again for those folks who may have forgotten. The average locomotive engineer makes, on average, $135,000 per year. We offered them a deal that basically was going to increase their average salary to $172,000. They wanted a $190,000 salary increase, or an average increase of $55,000. Yesterday, they came back with a proposal that now demands a $225,000 wage or a $90,000 wage increase. I'm not quite sure if they understand the rule of negotiation or if this is how they intend to drag us along for the next several days till they get to strike. I think that the proposal that they have put forward is neither serious nor does it show a signal that they are willing to collaborate to get to a solution. Worse yet, the proposal they put on the table will now require the corporate transit fees to go up by 37% or the fares to go up by 34%. How is that working towards a solution? I don't see it. Maybe they know something that I don't, but I'll just say this. If they are playing a game of chicken with the lives of 350,000 riders, I think they are in for a rude surprise. One, I don't play games. This is the lives of New Jersey residents who rely on us every single day to get to their work and home. This idea that now all of a sudden they are no longer interested in a $190,000 average salary, but they want $225,000 a year salary, doesn't even make any rational sense. I've been reading that they said yesterday that their proposal that they're about to put forward, this is yesterday morning, was going to be fair and it's going to be affordable. I don't know of a single person in the legislature, in the public, our riders would ever say what they put forward was any one of those. So what we said to them is plain and simple. We rejected that offer, and we said something which I hope they take to heart. We want them to go back, think about what it is they're doing. What do they want to achieve? If they don't want a deal, and they will scuttle any deal, then they should just tell the riders that's what they want. I've also read in the last few days that people have said, just give us what we want. Yes, I am sure that is what their position is. But that means to give them what they want, the riders will have to pay either a 34% fare increase, or the businesses will have to pay a 37% increase in corporate tax. Those are the options. I am not sure where we go from here, but I will always say this clearly as I can. I will never leave the bargaining table. I will always meet them, but they have to understand that in a negotiation, you don't go from trying to meet somebody halfway to even worse than they were before they started the negotiation. If that is their tactic, I'm not sure if they understand how to negotiate. And worse yet, I think it is a clear signal that they intend on striking and not seeking a solution. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
What is the total amount there that we're talking about per year? Do you have, is it the 40 million that I've heard, or is it a different amount?
No. So I think it's very important. They rejected an offer that we put on the table, that they shook my hands on, made a deal, and then they voted down, where the deal was going to be offered $172,000. Their position was they wanted $190,000 a year or $55,000 pay raise. Today, or yesterday afternoon, they put on the table, now they want $225,000 or a $90,000 pay raise from their average salary. It doesn't compute in my head. Maybe they know something that I don't.
Have you calculated how much the difference is? Let's say you gave them that amount. How much more money would that add to your budget every year?
Well, look, I just gave you in terms of fare increases and corporate transit fees. I think the average rider is going to care about how much more in fares they're going to have to pay. Doesn't matter to them what the budget impact is. I'm saying to you that an average rider will now end up paying a 34% increase to give them this $225,000 annual salary. To me, that doesn't make any sense. We're trying to run a system where we're trying to move people, not bankrupt the system, which is where they seem to be going.
Hi. So we talked numbers. What's the word to riders that are being affected by?
I'm sorry, I can't. Can you
hear me
stand
now?
up?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I said you talked about numbers and where they are on the negotiation table. What's the word to riders that are being affected by this delay?
What is the worst?
What is your word to riders that are being affected by the delay?
Look, I want the riders to know I'm in the business of running trains, not stopping trains. I want them to know that I'm spending every waking minute making sure their ride is safe and efficient. That's my job. Frankly, that's the job of a locomotive engineer too. I don't want them to ever forget that. This is what our mission is. I want the riders to know that I'm never going to give up getting to a deal, because that is in their best interest. That is the only job I have, and that is the only reason why I will negotiate with the locomotive engineers day or night, any hour, any second, for however long it takes to get to a deal.
What is the plan if there is a strike?
We released our contingency plan, and I want to talk about that. Look, I want there to be no doubt that while I do not want a strike, none of us do. If the union pursues a strike, we will be prepared for it. Equally important, and let me be very clear about it, if anything the union does that looks like a strike, that smells like a strike, that walks like a strike, I will deem it a strike, and I will take all actions necessary to make sure we respond.
How long is the terms of the contract, and what are the annual percentage increases we're talking about?
So it obviously depends, right? So they go anywhere from 4 to 5% is what they want, which is far higher than the pattern that anybody else has gotten. But I think the most important thing to remember is the percentages are part of every contract. But I think we look at what the total salary is at the end of the cycle, and that is what matters, because that's what the riders end up paying for it anyway. That's what we care about.
But are there like work rule changes that also increase their income, or is it just strictly the pay raise?
It's a combination of all of it, right? The deal we made before was a combination of many factors, like it is typical in every deal. So let me just sort of say one other thing, perhaps preemptively. I've also heard this morning that the union said that yesterday they put generous concessions on the table. And let me give you an example of one, and only one I could think of. One of the concessions they put on the table was that any engineer trainee who left within a year of joining would have to pay back $9,300 to the agency. $9,300. That doesn't even pay for overtime for 2 people for a few weeks. How is that a concession that solves this fundamental issue of how they want now a $90,000 pay raise or $225,000 a year salary? Let me just sort of say one more thing. From the very beginning, if you listen to the union, what have they asked for? Parity. Parity with the gold standard, LIRR. We offered them a deal that they shook my hands on. This July, they would have made almost exactly the same amount minus a few cents per hour that the LIRR locomotive engineers make. Why is that not parity? Why is that not right? That is the deal we reject, because now they want to make more than what LIRR makes. Next, they're going to want more than what the French train workers make, because they are too striking today, because they want exorbitant wages. Well, you know what, my friends? We don't live in a socialist country. We live in a country that is driven by people who work very hard every single day to make hard wages so they can support their family. This is not an entitlement. This is a privilege to work here, and we should treat our jobs as such.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kolluri, can you just tell us what's the next step here? When's the counter coming? What's the schedule?
So the schedule we laid out is, we said to them, maybe you were running a few minutes late, so let me restate it. We said to them yesterday that they should go back, think very hard about what they're doing, and what it is that they actually want. To come back with a proposal that was higher than when we started negotiations several months ago is not a negotiation. It is a clear signal that they just want to strike. So I'm expecting them to come back to us, hopefully shortly, with what I hope is a reasonable proposal. I've said to them in no uncertain terms, look, these conversations that we have with them is it's contentious, but it's not, it is not acrimonious in that sense. And I think what I've said to them is, they have some soul searching to do here. This is not a bank where you get to come and withdraw any amount of money you want and say thank you very much. Somebody has to pay for it, and the people who are paying for it are the 350,000 riders, or the taxpayers of New Jersey, or the businesses who pay the corporate transit fees. Those are the only 3 places we get money from.
Last question. Anyone else? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, if you're just joining us right now, that was New Jersey Transit President and CEO Kris Kolluri, and the headline from this was, he says, I'm not sure where we go from here. He's responding to the latest counterproposal that was offered by the union representing locomotive engineers. It's an interesting turn of events today. He wanted to update everybody on the negotiations. He reiterated, we don't want to strike. He said he'll never leave the negotiating table until we get a deal done. But Mr. Kolluri did say that they met with the union again yesterday, and based on the premise, he says that talking is good, not talking is bad. He was expecting a proposal, something that could get the ball rolling here. But he said what they got instead was kind of a head scratcher. Kolluri said that the average engineer, and we've heard this before over the past couple of weeks, makes $135,000 a year. He says that NJ Transit offered them $172,000 a year. He said there was a handshake on that, and then they eventually rejected it. They wanted, and they came back with, or they wanted rather, $190,000 a year, which was a $55,000 pay raise. But instead, just this week, came back with a proposal for a $225,000 a year contract, so $90,000 pay raise. He says, I'm not sure they understand the concept of a negotiation. And he said that their offer shows that they are neither serious, and it shows a signal that they are willing, that they are not willing necessarily to collaborate here to get a solution. It says it seems as though they're hell-bent on going out on strike. Now, Mr. Kolluri did say that a salary of $225,000 a year, and he's trying to put this in terms that the commuters can understand here, aside from just that big headline salary number. He said their proposal, the union's proposal, would result in either a hefty increase in the corporate transit fee, which businesses pay. So that would be a 37% increase in the corporate transit fee. He said, or for the commuters, the people who ride NJ Transit, he said that would cause their fares to go up by 34%. He basically said, listen, if they're going to play chicken with the lives of 350,000 commuters, he says they are in for a surprise. Quote, I don't play games. Of course, stay with us here on News 12 for the very latest on the negotiations between New Jersey Transit and the train engineers. We're also your source for everything you need to know about contingency plans. You can find it all on news12.com and, of course, the free News 12 app.